Today, I am going to review the fourth episode of Young Justice called Drop Zone. This episode is listed as the fourth episode, only because the pilot episode is apparently a two-part episode. I haven't made a secret of the fact that I really hated this series, at least in what I saw in the first two episodes. If I'm being truthful, I liked bits and pieces of the first episode, but overall, I wasn't very pleased with either of the first two episodes, and I was beginning to wonder if there was something in the internet making people other than myself see something in this show that I just wasn't getting. After watching Drop Zone, I'm at least more willing and able to watch more of this series, although I am not going so far as to say that the rest of the series looks promising. I'm not going to get my hopes up and then be broken by bad episodes, bad ideas, and bad dialogue. But it is a huge step for me to admit that I didn't hate this episode, and actually liked it significantly more than the previous two episodes. The plot of this episode focuses on Batman sending the team on an observation mission to scout out a factory where venom, as used by Bane, is produced. The factory has been taken over by Cobra with a K, the cult that is basically, well, Cobra with a C from G.I. Joe. This episode does what the second episode should have done, and it seemingly offers us a standalone episode that allows for some character growth, while it also connects this seemingly standalone adventure with the overall arc of the series, by bringing things back to the mysterious members of the Light, who we last saw in the hour-long pilot. Overall, the plot is pretty straightforward. You have Bane and his soldiers working a factory where they produce venom, and it is here where I will make my only real complaint about the episode. As far as I can remember, Bane is never actually mentioned on screen. We see him a lot, but his name is never brought up. The people behind this show seem to think that everyone watching this show is intimately familiar with all of the characters in DC Comics who are going to be showing up in this series. But really, it isn't like that at all. Cartoons like Young Justice act as a gateway into DC Comics. If you make Young Justice easy enough to understand in order to hook non-comic book readers and make them interested in seeking out the comics with these characters, then you have done a good job. But most people who might watch this particular episode of Young Justice, they will only know Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. And this version of Bane might as well be called Mr. Pantaloons, because he bears no resemblance to the Bane of The Dark Knight Rises. It's irrelevant if he does resemble the Bane of the comics more closely than the Dark Knight Rises version, as someone who may not read comics wouldn't really know that. Heck, I consider myself an avid reader of comic books, and I don't really know who Sportsmaster is. I've only seen him in one comic book, and if this episode hadn't done the courtesy of naming him, I would have thought he was a revamped Deathstroke the Terminator. This episode is doing a better job of this than the previous two, but it really needs to do a better job of naming characters so that we know who we're dealing with in each episode. Anyhow, we have the Cobra cult take over the factory, and they have somehow mixed the Cadmus blockbuster formula with the venom that makes Bane. We don't really know how they've done this, but I suppose it will be revealed later. So Batman sends Young Justice to the factory because he's concerned why the venom is no longer being distributed. Before the mission, Batman tells the team that they need to decide who will lead the mission, which is honestly not entirely smart of Batman. Telling a bunch of teenagers that they need to decide which teenager will have authority over the others isn't entirely wise at all because, well, teenagers don't generally like having someone their own age assert authority over them. But even though this was kind of dumb of Batman, we couldn't have really had the arc of the episode, which involves Robin learning that even though he's Robin, he's not entirely suited for leadership, despite what the comics would tell you. And I don't know if this was just me, but I kind of thought Aqualad was already the leader. But I guess it's good that it is being settled out loud, and early in the series too. This episode would have felt incredibly silly if it came much later in the series. Some things that, while I wouldn't really call them complaints, they are things I didn't care about, would be Martian Lady Hunter flirting with Superboy. I just don't care about this because I don't care about either of these characters. Superboy is one of the Team Brooders, and that's all we know about him. Martian Lady Hunter is overly enthusiastic and is really bad at flirting, and that's all we know about her. I guess it's good that this series is taking this possible relationship slowly and not forcing it right away. But I need to know something about these two before I can care that they are going to get kissy with each other. I am fastly getting tired of Robin and his wordplay. It was funny at first, it is not now. About 2 minutes before the episode ended, I actually thought we weren't going to get Robin saying anything dumb, and then he says he is concerted after he and the villain have both been disconcerted earlier in the episode. Oh well, at least they tried their best, I guess. And we get Martian Lady Hunter saying her "Duh, Megan" line, which kills a small part of my soul every time she says it. And I've only heard her say it twice, but I know that becomes her theme. Tread carefully, Wiseman and crew. You could easily make me stop caring about this show again, very easily. Just keep going with Robin's dumb words and Megan's catchphrase, and I could easily go the other direction and decide that I really hate this series again. Overall, I think this is a pretty phenomenal episode, and if someone was asking me if this was a good series, I'd point them to this episode and encourage them to skip the previous two. Let's hope this show gets better from here on.